Good hello and welcome back to Down Under Politics, the politics show about Australian politics where we talk the things and we upset all the people, especially Peter Credlin. Not that that's really much possible at the moment, as she's about as upset as anyone can be. Her and Avi Yemeni, both of them very, very upset because all hail Dictator Dan.
Rebel media in shambles right now.
Oh, look, Army Yevedy is on suicide watch, obviously. No other explanation. Although, to be honest, and this seems like a great spot to start talking about the Victorian election, talking about all the really juicy stuff. I have a conspiracy theory that Avi Yemeni is actually very, very happy right now. Secretly behind closed doors, of course. The reason being that he's now got an entire term to shit on the Victorian government. But any perceived ill doings, real or imaginary.
I mean, realistically speaking, whoever was in power in Victoria can get crapped on.
This is true, but Avi Yemeni particularly likes shitting on the Labor Party. And throwing chopping boards at people, so I've heard, allegedly.
Is that intimate partners or just people in general?
Look, I heard intimate partners, but I mean, if you're willing to throw a chopping board at your intimate partner, I'm sure you'd be more than willing to throw a chopping board at anyone. Let's be honest about that.
Flimsy plastic ones or chunky wood ones?
I heard it was a chunky wood one.
Ooh.
He gave her wood good.
That just feels like the wrong show to make that joke.
Look, I'm not going to apologize for that. That was hilarious.
Oh, you should never apologize in general. It just emboldens the mob.
Oh, look, I'll get cancelled at any moment and then we'll actually become popular. Because that's how cancel culture works. You get cancelled and then you become more popular than you were before.
Yeah, aim is the goal of this entire show has been to get cancelled. Well, that's what I've been going for.
I think that's what we've all been going for because Australian politics is a bad joke.
Well, I don't know. We're not America, but we're a bit more boring than America.
Yeah, that's why it's a bad joke. America's just a joke.
I mean, both Australia and America both have gormless politicians. At least the American ones are entertaining.
I don't know. Dictator Dan is pretty entertaining with his shenanigans. And oh, what's the name? I've already forgotten the name. That's how much attention I. Yeah, Credlin's not a politician. Although, Peter, I dare you to run for office. If you get elected, I will give you 1 million BitTorrent tokens. A million of them.
The corporate masters are against piracy, don't you know?
There's nothing private about crypto, Mitchell. It's literally the opposite of private. It is all out there on the blockchain, which is publicly readable.
I thought you said BitTorrent, piracy.
No. There's a cryptocurrency called BitTorrent.
Why would you be into that?
I thought it was funny.
Yeah, fair enough.
Oh, look, I haven't loaded up the crypto app that I have for a while. Let's have a look.
Will give him,
no, don't have a look. It's for your own sanity.
Jono will give them 1 billion spiffcoin.
Spiffcoin. Oh, yes, Spiffcoin. Brilliant. Yeah, look, I currently am the proud owner of 3 million BitTorrent tokens for a grand total Australian value of $3.12.
How far are you down on your all-time high?
So I put $100 in as a bit of a joke. My account's currently set at $39.23 in value.
Big oof.
That's where it's down. But on that same note, and I know we're getting off topic, but look, crypto and stonks is political, right? My actual investing portfolio, I invest in actual things that produce stuff that's useful. At least I think it's useful. is currently up about 5.5% across the entire portfolio.
Look, that's not terrible.
No, it's not, especially when the portfolio is worth about 8.5 grand.
See, I was going to say it depends. If the portfolio's $10,
No, I've got about a bit over 4 grand in a global clean energy ETF, and as well as in Games Workshop, because
you keep them in business.
I do keep them in business. Look, I go in there, I spend money, and then I get a dividend every quarter, so I get some of my money back. Why not?
Ever so slightly much of it.
Ever so slightly, but technically, it's money and it produces a good, and it's the type of investment that I like a lot because it actually produces stuff for society, as opposed to, housing, which if you just buy a house that exists, don't do anything with it, you haven't really contributed very much.
I mean, of course, that's why you got to put people in it. Oh, we're absolutely getting off topic now.
We are getting way off topic.
Jono, you need to just with your
I need to just zip it and stop talking.
with the items you print, perhaps you need to rent them.
Oh god. Yes, look, I could do that.
Can you rent Warhammer pieces?
I could, but I don't think I'd be happy with the state they come back in. I'd probably have to charge a cleaning fee that I don't actually use to clean them.
Yeah, that's your strata rates.
Oh, look, I'll charge you for the water I use to wash the prints as well.
Yeah.
But only water usage, not the actual rates. Mitch, you look like you're about to explode.
Oh, because the thought of what you might be cleaning those things from, I
use a environmentally friendly water washable resin.
Okay, yep.
That you still don't want to get on your skin because it still switches your immune system off if you touch it.
So it's like AIDS on the outside.
It is literally, look, yes, that's exactly what it is.
Liquid AIDS.
It's exact. But back onto the Victorian election. Let's try and stay on topic even a little bit. Who knows what'll happen?
Yes, Johnny, let's try and stay on topic.
Well, getting off topic is what we do best, isn't it?
No, this is true.
So as anyone that's been paying even slightly close attention, the ALP won by a lot. They're currently sitting at 51 confirmed seats. They needed 45 to win.
Who didn't think they were going to win, though?
Sky News, the Murdoch media, Peter Credlin. Yes, I'm aware she's on Sky News, but I have to mention her specifically. Avi Yemeni. Who else? The Costello media, I suppose, probably. I don't know. I don't really pay attention to those ones that much because they're all full of shit.
Whatever copium they use, I want some. It is some good stuff.
Oh, look. The thing that I find the most hilarious about all of this is how often they go on about the silent majority that want a nice conservative government. And then over the last couple of elections that we've seen, that's not what has happened at all. And that's going through fires, floods, a global pandemic, an economic recession. I'm of the opinion we are currently in a recession. We just haven't been in it for long enough for it to be official.
Oh, completely agree with you. It's absolutely a recession right about now. But I'd actually suggest the reason why the right wing of politics isn't able to make any headway is because they keep bloody splintering.
That doesn't help.
You look at it. You've got us. Well, the Liberal Democrats is the best. You know, if you want to go for freedom parties, we're the ones with the most principles and the least backcrap sort of.
They are technically the most freedom party out there. I'd say that they're more freedom than the Greens, with an asterisk at the end, because some of the economic positions they support do not support freedom at all.
So then you've got Clive Palmer, the United Australia Party, which we all know is just a feeder party for the Liberals. You've got the Freedom Party, which is basically just a whole bunch of malcontents who didn't like certain things didn't like the fact that the LDP is for cannabis legalization. So they decided that they wanted their own LDP with blackjack and hookers.
Look, I do find that mildly amusing.
And it's just like the right cannot agree on anything. Like, look at the Labour Party. That's 4 parties in one. They have a caucus. They have competing interest, and they manage to find consensus. Look at the Greens. They're basically 3 interest groups is sharing the same party. They have to find consensus. They have to manage interests.
Yes.
Why is the right not able to do that? If they were able to do that, then they would start to see more unified messaging. They'd start to see better resources consolidated into one place. You'd see more votes going to individual people rather than being spread out and fighting at cross purposes.
I have a hypothesis as to why that is, and I think it really goes to the core of right-wing conservative ideologies, because a lot of right-wing conservative ideologies, in my experience, are largely about forming a hierarchy or conserving a hierarchy and making sure that the group you're in is at the top. And the thing is, they can't agree who's going to be at the top. So, which is why they end up splintering and fighting amongst each other. Because, yeah, as far as they're concerned, it's kind of with us or against us. And there's no capacity to have a middle ground there. It's, if you're not with me, you're my enemy kind of thing.
The thing I don't understand is parties are hard to make. Like, having been involved in the guts of a political party, they're difficult things to register, to keep registered, to find candidates with the money willing to stump up to be candidates, because it costs you a lot of money to do that. All of that sort of thing. So my question is, where are they getting all the money from?
Well, let's see what sort of things that they support predominantly. Coal. I mean...
But I can tell you, like, the Liberal Democrats, we don't get money from the coal industry.
Well, I suppose. I mean, I can almost guarantee that Clive Palmer gets a lot of money from mining.
Oh, yes, of course. Obviously, Clive. But where are parties like the Freedom Party coming from? The Sack Dan Andrews Party, the Angry Victorians Party. Where are all these parties coming from?
Presumably,
and why are they splintering the vote?
I'm assuming that the Sack Dan Andrews Party are getting their money from RV Emity. I'm assuming that's where they get all of their money from, because I mean that's basically all that guy has at this point.
We know that party was set up by Glenn Drury, but where did he get his money from?
Ask him. This is why we just need to have proper transparency in campaign financing. Then we'd know these things. Wouldn't that be great?
Do you reckon politicians would vote for that?
No, they wouldn't, because they can't be corrupt sacks of shit.
I think what you said before, Jono, I can't remember where I was going with it, but I think the reason the right can't... Oh, that's what I was going to say, was you said about the silent majority. I think technically that still exists. I think on a social level, people are typically more right-leaning. They don't like political correctness. They don't like wokeism, as we talked about on the previous episode. But I think the last 3 years really... I don't think... I'm actually quite surprised, I guess, Dan got through it, because I thought the last few years, I don't think any political party was going to survive that. Like,
no, you know why Dan got through it?
Even if Labor had been in power, I don't think they would have survived dealing with COVID. I just think people wanted to change the government. Whatever government was in, people would have voted against it.
That's not what we saw, though.
Well, this is a state government, obviously not a not a federal government.
Well, Victoria was arguably the government that had the harshest lockdowns in terms
yeah,
of
in
COVID,
the world,
and
much.
then they won their election. And I reckon the large part of the reason why is because they were seen to be actually doing something about the problem.
And I'll actually add to that as well. I think the reason why Dan Andrews won this election is bigger than COVID, and it's the same reason why I said the Liberals were going to win their last election back in 2019, when everyone was saying the state Liberals, oh, they're on the nose. We don't know if they're going to win or not. And I just said they're going to win. And there's one reason why the Liberals won back then, and Victorian Labor won this year: infrastructure projects. If you deliver infrastructure projects, then people think you're doing something. COVID is an emergency, but it has passed, and it wasn't relevant to the election cycle by this point.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That, and you got to also keep in mind, as I believe you did touch on earlier, Mitch, that the Liberal Party didn't really do anything to try and win. They kind of just tried to ride on the whole dictator Dan thing. And it's like everyone's exhausted by that, and they've just kind of moved on.
Okay. How successful do you think you're going to be if you had a guy who was opposition leader, replaced him with another guy, that guy stepped down, nobody else wanted it, so you brought back the original guy? That's Matthew Guy, the Victorian opposition leader.
That's going to be super successful.
Yeah,
like I said, it's almost like they were just trying to. They didn't really have a plan to win.
The party had a personality of wet cardboard.
Well, that's just the Liberal Party in general.
Well, this is true. I mean, if you only open up your membership to wealthy private schoolboys, then what do you expect?
Like a lot of Catholic priests to be around.
what?
No, that's actually the DLP in Victoria.
Oh, of course.
Democratic Labour Party.
And what you were saying before, Mitch, about the fragmentation of the different parties, why can't the right unify? I actually think the reason the right can't unify is because there's parties such as One Nation who are so far right, maybe I should reach this way, that they hold views that, are a little bit controversial, that people slightly to the left of them, the Liberals, don't really want to be associated with those extreme views, because I don't want to say that as, oh, yes, that represents us, because it doesn't represent all of them. It represents that niche little piece of the right that's extreme, or the far right. And they don't want to associate with that, because then they lose votes, but they still want those votes to support them.
One Nation largely struggles for a similar reason to, and obviously not quite as much, a similar reason to why the Greens struggle. It's because they're viewed in the context of Australian politics. I'm not sure if everyone watching would be familiar with the term the Overton window, but basically, when you look at political ideologies on the global scale and looking back over time as well, the majority of Western democracies, both sides of their two-party systems, are both economically quite right-wing. But they're seen as being either side of the center because of the Overton window, where anything further left of basically true center is completely ignored as extremist.
Having said that, I'd actually suggest that One Nation is further to the left on the political compass than the Liberals and possibly Labor.
Economically speaking?
Yeah, they're in favor. They're in favor of making sure that Australian resources are held by Australians. It's classic protectionism.
That's one issue. At the same time,
they're just going for but socially, they're very right.
They're very much in favor of private property.
Oh yeah, definitely private property. But I'd say they're further to the left economically than the major parties.
I think on that one issue, maybe. But overall, they're basically a Liberal Party clone with a bit of fascist rhetoric thrown in.
Yeah. Well, Fraser Anning.
Where did the Nationals sit?
The Nationals are basically
They're liberals with guns. They're liberals with guns.
Not necessarily, because the Liberals are in favour of free trade, the Nationals are not.
I suppose. But keep in mind, protectionism doesn't necessarily mean left-wing either.
Not necessarily, but the impression I got from looking at One Nation stuff was that they would be far more comfortable with central government control of who owns what resources, which I think is still a somewhat lefty sort of.
See, no, I'd say that's more of a looking at the libertarian authoritarian axis.
That's fair.
Because when you're talking about the economic axis of a political compass, you're usually talking about whether or not the means of production should be privately or publicly owned.
I get what you mean, but with that, when I look at the left-right axis, I generally ask the question: to what extent should the government be involved in the economy? And I see government dictating ownership as being part of that. I look at the up-down axis as being social freedoms versus, yeah. That's just me, though. Maybe I'm understanding it wrong.
My understanding was always that, the economic axis was about who owns the means of production, whereas your authoritarian libertarian axis is more about how much control over things the government exhibits. For example, you could have a completely privately owned economic system, but there's so many rules and regulations in place that the government has a lot of control over what is produced, even though they don't own it.
Mm.
I mean, case in point, Nazi Germany leading up to the war, where you had a lot of businesses that were still privately owned, but they were only privately owned to the extent that they built the stuff that the Nazi Party wanted.
Exactly so. I would consider that to be a certain measure of a command economy.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, you can have economically left-wing command economies. Soviet Union is a classic example, but you can also have very economically right-wing command economies.
See, I would count anything that is a command economy as being economically left-wing.
Well, unfortunately, that's not what the definition means. I could get a dictionary out if you'd like.
We're probably getting a little bit off topic, though.
We are, and while both of you Google that, as I can see you both going to Google that, I would just like to take this opportunity to address the Greens and say, please pull your head out. This was not a green wave. Please stop saying that. It makes you look like idiots. At the moment, it's looking like you've won 4 seats. That's not a green wave. Yes, you've technically done better than expected, but just keep it down to earth, please.
I'm very interested to see that you're being the wet blanket on this.
I'm a realist, and I have a jihad on bullshit. When I see bullshit arguments, regardless of where they're coming from, I'm going to call them out.
You might be a realist, but I'm the realist. Sorry, that was a bad joke.
Just a second. There, problem solved.
Wow, rude.
What are you doing, Jono?
Oh, I muted Mitchell.
I think we totally had some dead air there. Oops.
Oh, shame.
Anyway,
something else I find rather interesting: 0 independents, 1 seat so far. So basically, it's Labour, LNP, Greens are the only parties that won seats.
That's interesting after the federal election.
Well, climate change is a federal issue. It's not a state issue.
This is true, and a lot of the independents that won based off of climate change, well, a lot of the independents that won were winning based off of climate change. There's a reason they were called teal independents, and that's because they're basically liberals that are not in denial about climate change.
I wonder why they were called teal. I thought there was just meant to be like they're not blue and they're not red.
Well, if they were not blue and not red, wouldn't you call them purple?
That's what I was going to say. Why weren't they called purple?
They're called teal because you combine blue with green, you get teal. Because ultimately they're liberals. They're liberals economically and socially, and they disagree with the liberals on one issue.
Oh, maybe two if you count the way that liberals treat women.
This is true. A lot of these independents were women, so yeah, I'll give you that one.
Which actually takes us back to, I think, the other reason why the Liberals have failed so miserably in the last couple of elections. They are ridiculously out of touch with what people want. They think that by embracing conservative reactionary thought, they can get a seat at the table. And the simple fact of the matter is that Australians are by and large pretty progressive people. If you to anyone in the Liberal Party who might be listening to this, if you want electoral relevance, you need to do three things. Number one, you need to accept that climate change is real. Number two, you need to take steps towards creating a safer space for women. Number three, you need to get new blood into the party, people from all walks of life. And no, don't ask me, you already have, and I said no. Like, the simple fact of the matter is that the Liberal Party is disconnected from reality right about now, and if this continues, they will fade into electoral irrelevance, and there will not be a right wing, a broadly right wing.
Well, there'll be the Labour Party.
Well, but I wouldn't say the Labour Party necessarily that right of centre. There will not be a socially conservative party that can balance and represent interests of socially conservative Australians. Might I suggest as well that if you are a socially conservative party, then the best way to be socially conservative today is to let people be socially conservative in private. As soon as you start saying, oh, we want to do all of this sort of, like, okay, so for example, you've got what was it? Sharing the screen is just throwing me off. Sorry, man. But yes, I take your point about One Nation being not as.
I mean, they are technically left of the Liberal Party, but only just.
I disagree with that characterization of the Nationals, though.
I was going to say that the risk there is of.
I think you're putting too much weight on protectionism there, Mitchell, is why it's skewing for you in your head.
Maybe.
I was going to say, I think there's the risk there of, Jono, you're happy with the Liberal Party just completely disappearing. But I think the risk there is if there is no general Conservative Party to cater to the conservative Australians, some of them may vote for those other right-wing parties that are sitting right next to Liberal on that graph. And not the Labour Party, because they'll see the Labour Party as the left party. And then we end up in a situation where we potentially have One Nation and the National Party having power, which I guess I don't know about Mitch's stance, but me being...
Look, I don't think any of us want Pauline Hanson to be PM.
Yeah, I don't think any of us, even conservatives, except for the most extreme, would want that.
But having said that as well, the reason why I don't think Pauline Hanson will ever gain power is because you look at what's happened. Okay, so in Victoria, they introduced a whole lot of stuff that was broadly considered anti-religious, and a lot of religious people got up in arms about it. But their solution to that was to infiltrate the Liberal Party and seek to swing the pendulum back. That's not what Australians want. Australians don't care if you're religious. Australians don't care if you're homophobic. There's a lot of people who are casually homophobic in working class neighborhoods. Australians don't care if you're casually racist. Just do it in the privacy of your own home.
Look at most blue collar workplaces or high school playgrounds would be another example where gay is thrown around as a bit of a slur, unfortunately.
Or the spicier F word.
What, bundle of sticks?
A British cigarette.
But look, the reason I disagree with you a bit on that, Mitchell. And my reason for this is I can fully see how that scenario could turn out, but I think what would be more likely to happen would be that all the funding that currently gets poured into the Liberals and Nationals, from conservative donors that want to keep the status quo going, would end up pouring money into Labor, because they already donate to Labor. Labor already takes donations from the fossil fuels industry. So they just divert more money to Labor, and Labor would be put in a position where they have two choices. Either they lose to One Nation, which is really fucking embarrassing, because they have the entire Australian media ecosystem sledging them and putting One Nation on a pedestal, or they give up their laurels a little bit and they become more right-wing.
Well, I disagree that the media establishment will ever support One Nation.
Okay, maybe not One Nation, but an equivalent.
I would hope to goodness the Liberal Democrats become the credible alternative, because
I'd
they're
be
not
okay with that.
I don't think they'll ever gain. Libertarian values are not popular in Australia. I'd suggest the real reason why we aren't any more than a 2% party is because we don't have strong presence, we don't have strong awareness in the community. Certainly a lot of donor money coming in and coverage on Sky News would help fix that. But the reason why the Liberal Party and the media have been in bed for so long is because the media have a vested interest in keeping control of the corporatist, socially progressive arm of the Liberal Party. Because the Liberal Party, and I've said this to other people, I'm not sure if I've said it on this podcast, but the Liberal Party has two interest groups in it, and they hate each other. They are the corporate social progressives and the right-wing populists and the religious.
Yeah, the wets and the dries, as Geordie's calls them.
Yeah, the right-wing populist religious make up the voter base of the Liberal Party, and the Liberal Party and the corporatists know that they need them, but they hate them.
Yep.
Whereas the religious people and the social conservatives know that they need the corporatists for the money and the influence with the media, but they hate them too.
Yeah, that's fair.
Both sides of the Liberal Party hate each other. And we've been seeing for the last couple of years, in the media, the corporatists have been trying to force out the right wing from the party, trying to shame them, humiliate them out of public positions, and in turn the right wing have been recruiting from churches and all of that to branch stack right wing candidates into branches and electorates.
See, in a country like Australia, I think that's a really foolish strategy to try to employ.
I completely agree with you.
The simple fact is, Australia is very multicultural. It's very multi-religious. You start trying to throw Christian nationalism bullshit out there, and you're going to destroy any chance you have of winning an election.
This isn't America, where you can get away with doing it on a state-by-state basis.
Yeah.
I was going to say, if the Liberal Party was to effectively dissolve, and like you said, Jono, if the media threw themselves at Labor, don't you think that would effectively make Labor the new Liberal Party? Like, do you reckon they would become just the same? They'd have to adopt the same policies to get the same attention, to get the same votes.
I think
they'd be very.
They would largely, but they would put a much more worker-friendly spin on it.
Like Trump.
Yeah, they'd probably. I could see that happening. Trump threw out a lot of anti-establishment rhetoric, and then never proceeded to follow through with it.
The Labor Party has the best policies, guys. Best, believe me.
That was a terrible Friendly Geordies impersonation.
Oh, no, I was going for like an Australian Trump.
Oh, okay. I thought you were taking the piss out of Friendly Geordies, because I'm pretty sure he has said that at one point. Don't quote me on that, though. That's off my terrible memory.
How am I supposed to know what Friendly Geordie says when I don't watch him?
Oh, actually, speaking of Friendly Geordies, whoever tossed a fire bomb or two at his house, fuck you to the moon.
Oh, absolutely. If you burned his Tau army, we were still waiting for him to accept an invitation to have a game with us.
I have to fight him with orcs because greens is best.
I just yeah, okay, Geordies, if you're watching this,
and we know
your
you
challenge, we know you are. You're challenged to a game of Warhammer 40k. If you don't have an army left, we will help you build one.
I have some Tau behind me.
I can slap chop it in CFMEU colors just like you like it.
Oh, brilliant.
No, he literally said that's why he painted his Tau in the colors he did.
I know. Oh, look, I need to go repaint all my orcs at some point. They all need to be painted purple, and no one will be able to see them.
No, teal, Jono, not purple.
No, purple. The reason is, David, because purple is a super stealthy color, because no one's ever seen a purple orc before. So it has to be a stealthy color.
So no one's seen it, so no one will.
So basically I'm just going to have a bunch of bases with little footprints on them. And say this is my purple orc army. But back on the Victorian election, now that Dictator Dan has managed to keep control of the proletariat and maintain power with his clearly democratic election.
Seize the means of government.
He seized the means of government from himself, so he could then sacrifice it to himself to appease himself. Sorry, that's another joke.
Oh, we'll save that one for the Christmas special.
That one will be saved for the Christmas special. What do we think the next? What's a term in Victoria? Is it 3 or 4 years? I can't remember off the top of my head.
4 years.
4 years. That's what I was thinking. What are we thinking the next 4 years of Labor in Victoria is going to look like?
Delivering on infrastructure projects, and they're going to get in on the next election too.
Fair.
What do you reckon is going to happen in March with the New South Wales election?
Look, given the trend that we've seen across the country with recent elections, I'd say I put the odds at about 70-30 ALP, LNP.
I think the LNP will get in, but by the skin of their teeth. I think they'll have a precarious majority in the lower house, and they may even have a hostile Senate legislative council.
See, I don't think that, because as we have discussed in Australia over the last 3 or 4 years, the political right has been splintering pretty badly. And on top of that, because we did have we had the LNP in power over COVID, and as I still see right wingers posting shit all day, every day about how bad all of the lockdowns and passports and whatnot are. And it's like, dude, get over it.
In fairness, though, those things were bad, and it seems like we've completely forgotten about them, and there's been no consequences for people who oversaw the ruination of people's livelihoods. I feel sorry for the small business owners who couldn't pay back their loans and had to declare bankruptcy. I feel sorry for the kids who were not at school where they could have been receiving support services, because I have worked in lower income schooling areas, and let me tell you, some of those kids needed support services. Some of our kids did not have internet access. I'll keep it short, but there were serious and significant issues, and I would like to see an acknowledgement that the lockdowns weren't good for everyone. They were great for people who could work from home, rootless urban people who can, digital nomads, all of that. It wasn't good for people who have solid roots in the community and who needed to keep in contact with their friends and loved ones.
Yeah, it's why we saw those was it the construction workers in Melbourne protesting, like I could understand why they would do that. Like, I had the convenience of being able to work from home. Didn't really impact me. A lot of construction workers are probably contractors. They basically would have just been, no, go home, too bad.
See,
and it would have been very damn hard to find a job. Or, I understand they would have got propped up by like Centrelink, but a construction worker probably earned a lot more than what the what was it, JobKeeper or
JobKeeper.
The other one. I can't remember what the other
JobKeeper was
one.
for employers to not fire.
Yeah,
employees.
JobKeeper was to not fire. I can't remember what the
Job Seeker is the one you're thinking of.
Yeah, I couldn't remember. I thought that, but I didn't know if it was called that during COVID.
I'm pretty sure it was still called that, even though it's kind of a misleading name. See, this is where I think I reckon this is why I think the ALP will probably win in New South Wales, for largely similar reasons to why the ALP won in Victoria, despite, Victoria had the harshest lockdowns in Australia, and they still managed to pull through it and win. So if, they can win having that, New South Wales, who didn't do that, and the ALP wasn't in power, they're not going to have that mark against them in a lot of those people's minds. Whereas you'll have those people, like you said, Mitch, the construction workers that were contractors that couldn't make any money during the lockdowns. They're almost certainly not voting for the LNP.
But what's the odds that they might? Okay, so consider the ethnic communities. They tend to they've been Labor in the past, but what's the bet that they could go LNP? I mean, we're seeing in America and Florida, we've got Cubans that are swinging terribly Republican. It's entirely possible that those demographics could lean that way, and we have to understand New South Wales is a different beast from Victoria as well. Victoria's very progressive.
It's possible, but in order to be able to actually say that you think it's likely, I think you need more than it's possible.
Oh yeah, yes, I understand what you mean. I'm making wild conjecture, but I see the Liberal Party faring the exact same way as Dan Andrews did. If they deliver on the infrastructure projects into the next little while, and by all accounts they are continuing to do that.
Are they?
Yeah, more or less. I mean, getting the M8 and all of that sort of stuff sorted out. The federal elections next year, and by that point, people will have the opportunity to travel on public transport, the freeways, all of that sort of stuff. You've got the M9 orbital that's being planned, the Coffs Harbour bypass that needs to go in as well. You've got a whole lot of stuff in the works, and because the Liberal government in New South Wales has delivered on their past stuff, I think people would be interested to see where things go.
They've also proceeded then to sell it off to private companies that then charge you an arm and a leg to use it.
Yeah, but most people don't think that far.
If the Labor Party is smart, and I know that is a massive fucking if, then they would, hammer that point home. It's like, hey, yeah, we got all these cool infrastructure things, and now you're going to have to pay to use them twice.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, I hate that, but all I'm saying is that people are just going to say, ooh, shiny.
This is true. People are that shallow. Hey, Tom.
Hi. Sorry, I'm late.
Acceptable. Only 10 lashings for you then.
Hey, Jono, did you want me to do a segment on what's trending on Twitter?
Yes.
Look, I was hoping to avoid Twitter. I even removed it from the title and from the description of this one, but sure, why not?
Okay, what's happening
on the inside.
On Twitter? What was that, Tom?
You've become our man on the inside, so we don't have to do it.
Trending in Australia.
David uses Twitter, so you don't have to.
Sorry, what'd you say, David?
Trending in Australia. Racists.
Ooh.
Racists are always trending in Australia.
I mean, Australia's you could say Australia's casually racist, but an Australian would tell you, screw casual racism, we're going competitive.
Yep.
Well, apparently we do like sport.
No, we're not doing that again.
No, I think it's to do with, I'm scrolling through, it seems a bit all over the place.
I have only just managed to get Facebook to stop serving me ads for football teams. Can we not go there again, please?
Facebook doesn't serve me ads for football teams, and that is because it knows that I support the best team out there, the Knights.
I've confused Facebook, I think, because it's the other day it tried to sell me a $80,000 playground gym. It was bigger than my house.
Well, did
And
you
it was
buy it?
$20,000 on postage alone.
Did you buy it?
What it thinks I'm doing.
Dude, you should have bought it and then set it up
Yeah.
and charged entry.
Did
Yeah,
you
sure.
did you at least save the pictures from all of the angles? We'll sculpt it and you can 3D print it.
What are you going to tell Jonathan's daughter when she doesn't have anywhere to play now?
Yeah, I know, my bad.
Exactly. She'll have to go back to playing in the coal pile. So what's happening in that racist thread, David?
From it seems like there's things about the World Cup. There's also
yep.
something about the
look,
national.
I've seen a good number of jokes about the World Cup from various atheist groups that I'm in that are quite funny. You know,
Well,
about them forcing Islam down people's throats.
Well, it seems to be someone shared something about the Nationals opposing the Indigenous voice in Parliament.
Oh yeah, that's a thing.
Therefore, racist.
Well, look, let's be perfectly honest. Given the amount of information there is about the Indigenous voice, there's not really a lot of good reasons to oppose it.
Didn't we talk about this?
We did talk about
ago,
it previously.
and there was no real.
There's nothing really to be opposed into it. It's just setting up the framework so it can exist.
We all agreed there wasn't enough information. We were like, is it a committee? Is it one person? How's this person? Is this person elected or not?
Yeah, I personally would want to see more information.
I think that was our thought. Yeah.
Yeah, we can't really be for it or against it because there's not enough information. So to be against it, like hard against it, like the Nationals are, just seems a bit of a culture war-y, knee-jerk bullshit reaction.
Well, I haven't read it, but I'm curious are they actually hard against it, or are they just like, well, no, you haven't given us information, so we're not going to vote for it?
Well, I just don't think it's going to go through anyway. Because do you really expect Tasmania to pass anything remotely in favour of Indigenous people? They've got a reputation to uphold.
They do have a reputation to uphold, although, to be perfectly honest, and we are getting a bit off of the topic of the Victorian election here, but I think what Tasmania did, what happened to the Aboriginals in Tasmania was arguably more humane than what happened in the rest of the country.
That's a spicy take.
And my reason for that is eliminating a group of people eliminates the potential for any future suffering. And let's be honest, since colonization, Aboriginal people have suffered pretty hard.
Peter Singer would be proud of your utilitarian ethics.
No, I'm trying to check other countries.
I'm not saying that, genociding cultures is good or anything. It's obviously fucking not. But when compared to what was done elsewhere, it's bordering on the lesser of the two evils.
I will actually suggest there are actually descendants of Tasmanian Aboriginal people. Like they didn't kill everyone. Thank God for that.
It got pretty damn close.
They got pretty damn close, yeah.
To the point that, functionally speaking, the culture basically doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at National Indigenous Australians Agency on what is currently going on about this.
But I will say the group on Facebook that's been serving me sponsored ads about how I should vote for the Australian Indigenous voice to Parliament, they have been very level-headed when dealing with some very stupid questions. So I've got to give it to them for it.
And I imagine there would be a lot of stupid questions about it.
This is Australia. Yeah, I went there.
Yeah, from what I can see at the moment, it's still just all about setting up a legal framework to be then able to legislate one into existence. So, I mean, it's really not anything at the moment. to be fussed about.
Well, I want to see a solid proposal before I vote for something.
At the moment, it's kind of like what they're voting on is to use abortion as an issue. It's more of to set up a legal framework where the government can make a law regarding abortion. It's like it's not for or against it. It's setting it up so you can actually have a law about it.
That's a good thing. Just having the ability for the government to function on that topic. What they do on it is another thing.
Yeah, but when they start talking about what they're going to do on it, that's when you can start throwing up objections to it. As far as I can tell, any objection to this point is going to either fall into a slippery slope fallacy argument or a straw man.
I think any objections they'd have to really push it far for there to be any legitimate objections to it. Like,
yes, I mean, yeah, I suppose you could have objections to it from the Aboriginal community on the perspective that it doesn't go far enough. I mean, if it ends up just being another token gesture.
It's a fair point.
I mean, sort of like how the Greens throw up objections to some of Labor's climate policies because they don't think that they go far enough.
Which, to be honest, Labor doing it, I wouldn't be surprised.
If
it's just bullshit disguised.
I mean, at the end of the day, Labor are neoliberal cucks.
They're not really too far left, are they?
They're really not. We did have the political compass up earlier before you showed up, when Mitchell was trying to say that Labor were left wing, and there they were, smack bang in the middle of the right.
I wasn't saying that Labor was left wing. I was saying that One Nation was further to the left of Labor, and I'll take your point on that. Maybe protectionism isn't everything, but yeah.
Well, protectionism is one issue.
I think it's very telling, though, that most of those parties were rather authoritarian.
I do find it interesting that not just in Australia, though, but worldwide, mainstream parties, I nearly said particles. What was I thinking? Mainstream parties are all rather authoritarian.
Yeah, I think it's in people's nature to seek strong leadership and to reward it with support. I think that's why Dan Andrews did so well, because he was a strong leader.
Well, look, you got to be a strong leader to be a dictator, don't you? But I mean, like, look at some of these ones. Like, let's look at France as a random example. I have no idea which is their major party. Macron, I recognize that name. Macron, I recognize them.
Le Pen was the other one.
Le Pen. I mean, they're both authoritarian and right wing. Let's look at Canada. Liberal, Green, People's Parties, Conservatives. These people just basically want Quebec to be French. And these guys are socialists.
Put a French flag. Stab it in the ground.
You really have to be authoritarian just to lead for any substantial amount of time.
Have any
if you're not, you give the power to
New Zealand.
Germany, look, they're all authoritarian and right.
Germany's probably a bad example there.
Predominantly authoritarian and right. But let's look at the UK. Again, actually, no, their Labour Party is actually quite left wing. So their Labour, that's what, that's a solid.
They have a lot of parties on their graph.
That's a solid 4.5 to the left. Their Labour's basically where our Greens are.
Their Green is more right than their Labour,
but also much more libertarian than our Greens. That's interesting. But look, let's go. We'll get to Canada. I mean, come on. Anyone that thinks Biden is even slightly left wing is just not paying attention.
Look, I'm Team Joe.
Is that because you like having naps?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's right out of
nap.
mind.
I love a good nap.
Can't make you angry if you don't know.
I love a good nap plan. Does that trigger you, Mitchell? Are you
Yes,
triggered?
it does. I'll
Were,
have you know it does trigger me. Screw Napland.
were you baited by that? Was that
Yes.
some masterful bait? Were you baited by the master?
Worst.
And again, look, New Zealand,
That's my party.
Labour, smack bang in the middle of the alt-right.
I'd be voting the Maori party.
That is Maoris. That's it. David is officially a Maori.
See, what he doesn't know is they scored that because they've got really extreme views on equally different topics.
I love radical centrism.
They're not really centre. They're authoritarian liberal left-right. They're about as far as they can be from David while being exactly the same.
Just a bunch of people with split personalities trying to make a party.
Oh, can you imagine that? That'd be fantastic. I'd vote for them.
But
Also, bless the ACT party.
That makes sense.
The Australian Capital Territory Party. I'm fairly sure that party.
I think it's like Council of Taxpayers or something like that.
That's less fun. I was going to say they're the party that wants to become like the 7th state of Australia or something.
I wish. I wish the New Zealanders would just come around and recognise their inferiority.
Savage.
That party
we'll land up on
put an Australian flag.
Mitch, we'll end up on the Project New Zealand if you keep saying that.
Good, I hope so. We might get some viewers from there.
And look,
we might get cancelled.
Let's look at Ireland.
Let's get cancelled by New Zealand.
I don't know any of these. Look, there's Labour with a U. So friendly Geordies will love that. Social Democrats is that? You reckon the Social Democrats are like the Liberal Democrats? I mean,
different.
They picked half the name is exactly the same, so at least they're half the same, surely.
Look, to be honest, I think half the reason why all those parties are down there is because green is Ireland's national colour.
Fair.
They just want to be in the green space.
They just want to be green, and Labour just wants to be purple. Labour loves being purple.
It kind of bugs me that is it America that's backwards? Or are we technically backwards with our colours?
America's backwards. Red has always been the party of Labour, and blue has always been the party of conservatism.
Yes, America's backwards, but then we're backwards with naming the Liberal Party.
Yeah. Well, no, it's supposed to refer to economic liberalism, and it's supposed to be social liberalism. Neither of which it holds to.
No, not even slightly.
Oh, Menzies.
And nothing to do with libertarians.
You know what? We should hook up a generator to Menzies' grave because he's rolling in it right about now.
Look, I just want to go and visit Margaret Thatcher's grave. Mitchell, do you know why I want to do that?
Because you want to piss on it.
Yes. But do you know why I'd be able to? They built a public toilet on top of it.
What? Okay, I'm Googling this.
I heard that they put a trans toilet on it. Margaret Thatcher toilet.
Oh dear.
No, someone marked her grave as a public restroom.
That's what it was. I knew I'd heard about that somewhere, and I thought that was very funny.
There's a song called Margaret Thatcher's Grave is a Gender-Neutral Bathroom.
Is that funny?
And when she died, the song Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead was like the bestseller.
Of course it was. But
that was like
yeah, look, that's Margaret Thatcher's grave. It is a gender neutral toilet.
If we're talking about odd occurrences of things, I think it was when 9/11 happened. There was a song, I can't remember the name of the song off the top of my head, but it's in the movie Independence Day. And it was like top of the charts in 2001, and they had to ban it on the radio. So I think it's like the world is ending or something.
It's the end of the
That's it.
world as we know it.
Glorious.
Yep. That was like top charts, and they stopped playing it.
Oh, fun. Tom, you weren't here for it. Did you have any expectations of the Victorian Labor government for the next 4 years?
Not really. It's been the same government for the last 4 years, so do the same thing.
You expect them to just do the same thing?
Lock everyone up.
Lock everyone up. Get called Dictator Dan. Still win their election despite the silent majority that hates them.
I think that's the most satisfying part of that, is just watching all the mainstream media presenters that
just
think
cry.
that they speak for the people, realise
They
that the people
so
don't listen
fucking
to them.
don't.
Just the look of disappointment. I love it.
It's almost like the majority of people in this country realize that the mainstream media is bought and owned for by a handful of very wealthy people that don't have their best interests at heart.
I actually don't think I know anyone who watches TV who is probably within our age bracket / generation.
Nope.
It's true. I don't even have the
Yeah.
coaxial cable hooked up to my TV.
I haven't for 10 years.
I do, but I haven't watched actual TV in quite a while. I can't
Why'd you
remember
do
the last
that?
time.
Rots your brain.
Oh wait, the last time I watched TV was when I was getting surgery, and I was sitting in the waiting room at a hospital and had to sit there watching The Block.
Oh,
That's the only time I ever did. Waiting
very
room.
boring.
And that's why people don't watch television. I mean,
Then
I'm
I
not
got
going to
moved
watch.
and was able to change the channel and watch some space movie that was ridiculously inaccurate.
I'm not gonna watch TV.
The moon was going to crash into Earth. So,
oh, do you know what would happen if the moon did crash into Earth? It would be fantastic. The short answer is yes, you would die. The long answer is go watch the Kurzgesagt video on what would happen if the moon crashed into Earth. At one point, as the moon approaches the Earth, the gravities start to neutralize on the surface of the moon, and objects that are on the moon start falling towards Earth as the Earth's gravity becomes more powerful at that point.
well,
hey moon, give us back our lunar lander.
Look, the moon is the only celestial object in the solar system that is populated purely by cars.
There's a couple of robots there.
No, I don't think there's any robots there anymore. Mars has a few robots on it.
Doesn't China still have one up there?
No, maybe they do. I forgot about China. They exist, don't they? But
So
Mars is the only
at
planet.
least 2 bodies populated by robots now.
Yeah,
they're winning.
The robots have 2 bodies in the solar system. Humans only have 1. Robots are winning at this point in the quest to take over the world.
And that's why I always thank the GPS when it tells me where the cops are. I wanted to remember that I was nice to it.
Look, my son walks the lawnmower around the yard when it's out mowing.
An automated lawnmower?
Yes, it's a robot lawnmower.
So apparently that movie is called Moonfall, and it was the 79th worst box office bomb.
I've seen that. That was hilarious. I don't think it was meant to be a comedy, but I found it funny.
It was actually enjoyable to watch, but
Yeah.
it was very inaccurate.
You know, it's a really good space movie. Apollo 13. I like
Oh,
that
yeah.
movie a
Yeah.
lot. Also, Spaceballs.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Nobody knows the trouble I've seen. She's a baritone.
Fun, fun, fun. Well, look, Victoria gets to be under the reign of Dictator Dan for another 4 years. All hail the dictator.
Victoria, you deserve what you effing get.
So they deserve roads and stuff?
I don't like the guy very much.
I feel indifferently about him. I mean, personally, I would have liked. Look, the big thing that everyone bitches about Dan over is the COVID lockdowns, and personally, I would have liked him to see him just lock down harder and faster, get the thing under control, and then it's not a problem anymore.
Yeah, I don't think there's a government in this country that handled that right.
No. I mean, I was
Should have
saying
been sooner, harder, and
what
it wouldn't
about
have had such
what
a
about WA?
No.
Look,
They're
just
all right.
refer to Clive Palmer on that one. He'll tell you no. He tried to sue them.
Didn't
Yeah,
WA
and they
basically just
straight up
ban
threw
everyone
his
from
case
coming
out
in?
of court.
Yeah, but like a month too late.
Yeah, but they never really had an outbreak. They
Yeah,
kind of just said, stay away from us. No, you can't come here. But their state was still not locked down. Like people could still go places, just no one could come to them.
Yeah,
They
so
basically showed that they see themselves as their own country.
Oh, they've been waiting for that opportunity for a long time.
they have been waiting
Well,
for that
they-
opportunity for
yeah.
a long time.
There's-
As far as
Although,
I'm concerned, if you're in another time zone, you're another country.
so Queensland's another country?
Yep, they don't count for 6 months a year.
Or is it Kingsland now, Mitchell? Have they changed the name yet?
And I think they're still working on it. There's a lot of bureaucracy to make sure that a lot of names to change, all of that sort of thing. So I think we'll be waiting a while.
Fair. Oh, fun. Look, we might wrap up there, but on one final note, I have an image I need to show everyone that I find very, very amusing. And hopefully it will get us cancelled. Are
Am I
you
going to like this image?
probably not,
If we're
but
looking
also
for images
maybe.
that they're going to get us cancelled, just give me a second. I'll Google some stuff.
Look, here it comes. Isn't that such a beautiful image?
Oh boy.
And on that note, like, subscribe, do all the YouTube stuff, and we'll see you all next time.